One thing I do want them to have in their life that I've worked hard for is I want both of my children to have a safe, stable home that they can raise my grandbabies in someday when they have them. So I am going to make sure they have that.
Yeah.
Beyond that, it's going to trickle out over time. And
Yeah.
they're not going to get a bunch of it. The worst thing I could ever do is give them each $100 million.
Just give them this
When they're
massive
28.
windfall.
No way, man. No way will I do that to my kids. And I don't think they want it at this stage based on the way they were raised. So there's a way that you can write your trust that dictates when and how and where they get money, and also things they have to achieve in order to get the money. And so mine is beginning to be rewritten that way.
I like that.
Yeah, it's cool.
No, that's awesome. So, you know, speaking of grinding and like all the adversity, while you were talking, it was making me think, like, for me, you know, we're both baseball guys.
Yeah.
And so I just remember I played 8 years in the minors and,
Long time.
you know, independent baseball and everything. And I remember literally taking hundreds of bus rides, staying in motels and making literally $1,200 a month doing that. And I'm like, that made me who I am today. Where I'm like, dude, I'll go sit and coach. I don't really care.
Who cares?
Coach is great compared to what I was doing. And so it's just like when you're built in comfort, you don't really flex your muscles and grow and all that.
I'm going to tell you something. This sounds weird. I'm not comfortable in comfort to this day.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable in discomfort. I still have a hard time being comfortable. Like, if we go on vacation, man, it takes me 3 or 4 days before I even unwind. And then maybe I got 1 or 2 good days. And then I feel like, shit, I need to get back to work. And then, so I'm just sort of, I'm 52. I get me now.
Yeah.
I had this illusion or delusion that I'd be a dude who could sit on a beach all day.
No.
And that's what I would do. I just can't. Like, I love work. My work is my sport. It's my hobby. I wasn't as good as you, so I didn't have 8 years of minor league ball. I got a little brief taste. I got relieved of my duties early on, but I love how I feel when I end a day that I busted my ass and good stuff happened.
Yeah.
I don't like how I feel. That doesn't mean, man, look, I've had plenty of trips to Cabo where I've had a lot of tequila and a lot of golf and I didn't do a lot of work. I have done that, but I find my tolerance level for doing it is much shorter. Like, I'll go 2-3 days. I'm ready to get back. I'm gonna tell you something crazy. I'm 52. I can go anywhere in the world I want to. I have never been on a vacation longer than a week. And on that 1 week vacation, I have never not worked some of the days.
Right.
So, like, okay, this is gonna trip people out. Like, I've never been to Europe.
I haven't either.
I haven't been. And to be honest with you, I had a bunch of trips scheduled and I canceled them when I was younger because stuff at work came up. And I don't really feel like I missed anything, to be really honest with you.
We have a lot of commonality because we go to Cabo all the time. So I love going there.
Why do you love to go? Because you can get there in a couple hours from where we live.
It's the easiest freaking trip ever. It was the only place open during COVID. It was great. So I went to Cabo. I go to Cabo a few times a year.
Me too.
And, you know, I'm going there because I like sitting on the beach for a few days. I like the service, the food, the weather. Everything's great. But I've never been to Europe because, like, I don't want to walk the streets and, like, I don't know, see history.
I don't care.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I'm not a sightseer.
Yeah.
I'm not, God, I'm going to get a lot of hate on. I just don't care. Like, I don't want to fly 12 or 15 hours when I can just fly. Like, I'm doing a speaking tour in, I think it's Dubai in October. Number one thing, I'm like, oh, the flight over.
Yeah.
You know, and then I'm going there it's a good example. My team's playing in the tub. They're like, well, you talk on this day. And I'm like, okay, so it's a day change. I go, get me in there, get me to do the talk. They're like, no, it's like 20 hours of flying. I go, I don't care. I don't want to see it. I want to get back. I live on vacation.
Yeah.
So the biggest thing I would say to someone who's relating to what I'm saying or wonders, I've built homes where I want to actually vacation and live.
Yeah.
So my vacation is 5 o'clock tonight. When you're gone, I'll be smoking a cigar out there on my balcony with a nice 1942 in the glass. And I'm on damn vacation.
Yeah.
I live oceanfront, man. I got an island. I don't need to go to your version of vacation. And sometimes I go to Cabo. Even Cabo, I'm like, I just left there. It's right there.
Yeah.
That's Cabo. It's a little warmer. Like, what's better there is, like, the food's better. Like, the service
it's just
is better.
different. That's
and you should change your place so it recharges you to get back. And I don't want to steal the dream from people that want to be like travel the world. I don't even like packing when I travel. Like my stuff's in my closet, man. I just go grab my shorts and go down to the beach. Like, so I actually did this early on. I went to a seminar, a guy spoke, I'll never forget this. And he's like, I live on vacation. I go, that's the version I want. I don't be packing bags. Here's the other thing, like, no one's going to relate to this, but like, I'm introverted. I like it quiet. I don't even like hotels.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I don't like the noise other people make. I like being in my damn house. I worked real hard to get this house here and to get the other houses. So like I just, something in my body goes, let's get back and accomplish something. Let's expand. Let's do something. I almost feel like I'm wasting away when I'm on vacation. Yeah. Maybe that'll change when I'm 70. I don't know. But like, I thought by the time I was 50, I'll be like, this will be out of my system. It's just not. I don't love all the work.
Yeah.
I love meeting the next version of me. I love more self-discovery. I love expanding my being. Like I'm addicted to that. I'm not a big drinker. I probably smoke too many cigars, but like I'm addicted to the expansion of me.
Yeah.
Of my soul, of my spirit, of my being, of trying to understand myself and God and life and human beings better and make a bigger impact. And like that's my addiction.
Yeah. No, I've never heard that. I like to live on vacation. Like that's.
Yeah, I do. I live on vacation.
And you see that, like, I don't have, $30 million plus house on the beach.
Well on your way. You're ahead of where I was. Yeah.
Well, with me, even at the current stage, a house that's 10% of this,
sure,
right?
I'm sure it's more than that.
I don't like to go leave that because we have everything. Like it's a great house.
Yes.
And so if I'm going to go stay at a hotel, I'm like, this has to be an upgrade.
Correct.
Over what I have over here. Because why would I go?
Yes.
So that's basically your point.
One thing that's changed me the last 5 years, I have become a little bit snooty in like when I travel, where I stay. So it used to be like, I tell my staff, get me a good deal on something.
Yeah.
Even when I was rich, I was like, give me a good deal.
Yeah.
And then a couple of those deals weren't really good deals, once I got there. So now when I do travel, I go, what's the best place?
Yeah.
And I want to stay at the best place with the best service.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. And I've learned to value service as like, my experiences have grown. Because before, I mean, look, I grew up poor as a minor league baseball player. So like even eating Chipotle was like a sacrifice.
Yes.
Like, dude, man, I either make rice and chicken and it costs me $2, or I eat Chipotle, it's 5 times. That was the decision.
Top ramen days too.
Yeah. Yep. And, I remember the moment I didn't have to worry about paying for Chipotle anymore. It was like, wow, this is crazy. And then you start to, try new things. And then we started going out to dinner for $100, and you're like, wow, this is crazy.
Yes.
Then you go to a $500 dinner with your wife, and you're like, dude, I understand why people pay so much for this. It's not that the food is just so much it's the service, it's the ambiance, it's all of those things.
Bro, it's so funny that you say this. I've never said this in any interview. You're a good interviewer. I still have these moments like, I bought the island or whatever, right? You go, did that wow you? Yeah, it did. But let me tell you, like, I still have these flashes where like, I'll be at dinner with my family. The bill's $280 or whatever. And I'm like, I'm paying for this and I'm not worrying about it. Like those things I used to worry about so much, or like, it's amazing to me how not simple, that's more than simple, but like those things still give me great pride and joy compared to like even the big things. Cause I went so long as an entrepreneur. I can tell you how I lived, man. I had to rent an office, and I was looking for a new office when I had my financial company, and I found this office building that was on the roof above a Taco Bell. And the reason I rented this building, I signed a 3-year lease, is I figured out I'd go down there and eat Taco Bell every day, and I can refill this Mountain Dew cup here every day and not pay for a new soda. That's literally how my stupid brain thinks. So I tell you I'm risk adverse, but like I literally kept my office for 3 years because I could go get 59-cent bean burritos every single day. It wasn't good for my fitness back in the day.
Yeah.
But anything I could do to conserve or save money or pump more back into my business. And so now when I do go to Mastro's for dinner, it's not the best place in the world, but it's good. I'm like, I'm taking my family to dinner, and I'm not worried about this bill. This is a great feeling. That stuff is what made all the long nights, all the rejection, all the drives, all the dark houses where people no-showed, all the clients who changed their mind, all the critics. You'd be surprised at what made it worth it. This makes it worth it, but more stuff like that makes it worth it to me. Like my kids went to private school, man. I was able to educate my kids the way I wanted to. That made it worth it. I took those arrows so my kids could go to a safe school where there's a security guard in the front and they don't have to worry about, like, that stuff is. Here's the biggest thing about making your dreams come true. And I've just stumbled into this lately. I've been talking about it more because I've had the blessing of this happening. You have these dreams you want to make happen, live on the ocean or pay off your mom's house or whatever it might be that's your dream, or start your foundation, buy your Lambo, whatever your thing is. That is cool. And when you make your dreams come true, it blows your mind. What no one tells you about busting your ass and making your dreams come true is all of the dreams of the people you love that you will make come true. That you don't even know they have, and that they don't even know they have. I'll give you a perfect example. I worked really hard many years when I didn't have kids. Little did I know when I was working till midnight, get up at 4 the next morning or whatever I had to go through, I was actually someday making the dreams come true of children that weren't even born yet. Same with you, man. When you've been busted, most of your sacrifice, a lot of it happened before these babies were even born.
Yep.
The coolest thing about getting wealthy and making your dreams come true isn't what you think it is. It's the dreams you will make a reality for the people that you love in your life, some of which aren't even born yet, that you don't even know they have. That's the secret part of becoming somebody in your life that no one tells you. You can go to any summer and go, man, it's so good to buy a Lambo. It's so cool to have a jet. It's great to do. What they never tell you is there'll be literally millions of micro dreams of the people that you love. Some of you right now that are watching this or listening to this are working your ass off to make the dreams come true of somebody you have not even met yet in your life and may not meet for another decade. Yet you will do things for them because of what you're doing right now that you can't even imagine. That's the biggest part.
Yeah. For me, I was never a big material guy. Like I just started buying watches 2 years ago, you know, like I flew first class for the first time 2 years ago.
Okay.
And so I never cared about it.
Yep.
And the more that I've just gone through life and, you know, bought nice things, you're like, I mean, the watch was cool, but it's gone. After you buy it, you're like, all right, whatever. The experiences is really what matters. And so, you know, I was talking to actually my team on the drive up here. It's like, man, this drive up here is an experience, like what we're doing. You know, we were talking about my daughter had 2 crazy parties, you know, just like over the top that, you know, she's 2-3 years old. She's not ever going to remember this. And I was like, it's not even about her or that. It's about the other kids who will never get to experience something that crazy. Can
I tell you one thing about your kids though? I'm going to give you some insight on this. Her soul remembers it. And her emotional imprinting remembers it. So when you're giving your kids, when they're really young like this, these blessings of these incredible experiences, although they won't remember the actual experience when they're 25 years old, there's an emotional imprinting that creates patterns where she'll go back and pursue those same emotions of joy and beauty and bliss in her life unknowingly. When a child is raised without those experiences and without those things, with trauma or stress, they seek those out as they get older. So these things you do for your kids, they don't have to be pool parties or money, but these emotional things that our children feel when they're young, they go seek those as patterns when they get older. So for me, when I was young, because my dad was a drinker, my emotional pattern was to worry, was to be afraid, was to be scared, was to even be angry. And so as I became an older man, even though conditions of my life changed, my emotional imprinting didn't change. I still was worried. I was still scared. I was still angry. So these things you do, those of you listening to this for your children, now that they're young, they may not remember them, but you're creating emotional imprinting where they will pursue those patterns and those experiences and those people in their lives that deliver them for them, as opposed to the ones that harm them and hurt them.
How does somebody break free of that? Because so many people are listening. They had no control over that. That's how they were raised. And, you know, you got the majority of the world who's like, well, my circumstance sucked. There's nothing I can do. And then you have people who overcome it. How do they do it?
First is being aware of it. That's why it's so important they listen to what I just said. You just go, that explains me. That explains me. I got it. Okay, so there's some imprinting that was done. So the first is when there's an emotion or a thought and you become aware of it, it loses most of its power over you. So like for me, like I love to create chaos in my life. No matter what's going on, I got to mix in some chaos. And I used to say to people, man, I'm so good under stress and chaos. But what started to happen was I'd produce it unnecessarily. And I'm like, why the hell do I do this? Because I grew up in so much of it. And so once I was aware of it, now when I start to do it, I go, I'm doing this stupid shit again.
You're just, here I go. You're aware every time.
Here I go. So that one is the awareness. And then 2 is like beginning to live consciously. Don't be someone who just lives unconsciously, where you just respond and react all of your life. Live as a conscious human being. Choose. How would I like to live? What emotions do I want to experience? Begin to pursue them intentionally. There's a massive power in your life of just intentional pursuit of something, intentional pursuit of a goal, intentional pursuit of an outcome, intentional pursuit of a business, and also intentional pursuit of our emotions. What do? We set up goals every year. You teach it, I teach it. What are the things you want to get done? I want the jet. I want 100 grand saved. I want to make 2 million. I want to scale my business by 20%. I want to get to 8% body fat. Whatever these things are, we write up down every year. Do you really want those things, or do you want how they will make you feel? 8% body fat, I'd be shredded. How would I feel, right? Dream relationship, how would I feel? 100 grand in the bank, $1 million in the bank, whatever it is, how would I feel? So although those are important things, how come we never get intentional about the actual feeling? What if you worked on both at the same time? Because what I found out is I've pursued the feelings and the emotions. It's been easier to produce the material things. Instead of, I did it the hard way before. I'm going to get all the stuff and then I'll feel better. What I started to do as I got a little bit older is I want all the stuff and the things and the accomplishments and the accumulations, but I also want the feeling. So I'm going to intentionally pursue both of them. Now you're a pretty powerful human being. Right. You're aware over your crap. You pursue the emotions you want on a daily basis because we get what we most obsess over in our lives. So if they become your obsessive thoughts, you begin to get them. And I found this, man. I'm going through a relatively stressful time right now. It's sort of tripping me out a little bit. I'm actually pretty blissful right now. I've actually had a great deal of peace through this season of my life. Kind of surprising myself right now. Normally, the normal me, I don't even find peace when it's good.
Yeah.
I don't even find peace when I'm making millions and millions and hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And I'm finding peace during a trying time. Ooh, this is pretty, maybe I've grown a little bit here. Maybe this stuff I teach actually works, right? Maybe it works. And so I would just tell you to become more intentional about what you want to feel and not just what you want to accumulate. Do both.
Yeah. And this is also, you know, for me, one of the big reasons why I wanted to have you come speak at WealthCon.
Thank you.
Because you bring to the table this emotional, psychological, all these things that a lot of people don't talk about, right? Like I'll come up on stage and I'll teach tactical things that I think people could do because I think very logically.
Yeah, you do.
And to see guys like you explain why we do what we do, I'm like, dude, we got to get Ed.
Thank you.
You know, first off, I just want to say I'm appreciative that you're coming to speak. And
can I tell you why I'm coming?
Yeah,
it's you. So I've been blessed, man. The last 10 years, I have an agent, but they don't book my speaking. I'm word of mouth speaking, and fortunate. I get hundreds of requests a year, and I do about 80. And now I'm pretty scrutinizing about who I vet. And one of the things I try to do is I want to show up in places where I think, here's how I term it to my team. Find me people who's a stock I would buy if they were a stock. So, and in your case, I've watched your stuff over time. I've watched how you've handled. I've actually watched how you've grown on camera too. And if you were a stock, I'd buy you because I think you're rising. And so if I can come and sprinkle a little whatever on that and what you're doing in your community, what you're doing here on the show, I want to be able to do that because I didn't get into this space. It's happened, but I didn't mean it to. I'm not the king. I don't mean it that way, but like I didn't get in this space to be the king.
Yeah.
Or I wanted to be the king and queen maker. I wanted to build a platform big enough that I could say, this person's awesome too. This person, listen to this person. Almost create a space where I could elevate other people. And that's what I do on my podcast is I'm real careful of who sits in that seat because I know they're going to get millions of eyeballs and ears on them. And so when I come to speak somewhere, man, like you were the main reason that I decided to do it. And I've also just heard such good things about you from our mutual friends. And then today off camera, some personal stuff you shared with me. I'm like, this is one of my dudes now.
I appreciate that.
It's true.
Yeah, no, I really do. For anyone who wants to come, it's October 3rd to the 6th in Vegas. You can go to wealthcon.org and get your tickets. Actually, too, one thing that I'm also really appreciative you're doing is the dinner that we're going to have with, I think, 10 people only.
I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool because when you go speak to these big crowds, you know, you always leave there wishing you could have connected more personally and intimately with a small group where they can ask you things and feel your spirit, and you don't just get sound bites, but you're in this.
Yep.
And so that'll be what that dinner will be, you know, affording certain people to have and for me to have. I learn a lot of these things too, man. When I go, I get fed as much as I feed people at these events. There's always an experience I have that I cherish, or I get a letter afterwards, or a conversation I have. So I'm selfish doing it for me too.
No, I'm excited for that. So anybody, you know, we have a new level of ticket that was specifically because Ed was willing to do that. So I think it's 10 people only. We've already sold a bunch of them. So check it out.
Come join us.
Yeah, we'd love it.
Hey guys, I'm so excited to tell you this right now. Here's the deal. There's a chance now for you to be on this show with me, and I'm going to do it every single month. Let me tell you how you qualify to get on the show. Every single day on my social media, I run something called a 2-minute drill. So if that's Instagram or Facebook or TikTok, if you follow me on those platforms, when I make a post within the first 2 minutes, so have your notifications turned on. If you just make a comment on my post, every day we take everybody who's made a comment and we pick a winner every single day. And that person is going to have an opportunity to be on this show with me and get coached. So if you're interested, follow me on social media. When I make a post, make a comment, and eventually, hopefully you can get selected to win. We're picking somebody every single day, and I'll have those folks on the program. If you want to get a text reminder about my post or this program, 714-916-9144. You can text me at that number and you'll get daily reminders. I would love to have you on this show. Follow me on social media and engage in the 2-minute drill. Max out.
For people that feel like they're wasting their time, they're not getting the results they want, what is one thing that they could be doing right now that would turn things around for them?
Well, actually doing one more. So, we always talk, you and I both, about self-confidence and the fact that building self-confidence is the process of keeping the promises you make to yourself. And if you lack self-confidence, you've got a relationship and reputation with yourself that's not very favorable. And so the baseline way to get self-confidence is you keep the promises you make to yourself. But in life, as you know, we don't get like our goal. We get probably 25% of our goals. But we ultimately always get our standards. Long term, you will get your standards. So the question becomes, what's the standard need to be then? And that standard needs to be, you keep the promises you make to yourself and one more. So if you're going to do 30 minutes on the treadmill every day, you don't do 30 minutes. You do the 30 minutes, you do one more. You're going to make 10 contacts in a day. You don't make 10 contacts in a day. You do the 10 contacts and you make one more. Now what happens is you start stacking up those one mores. You're going to tell Lisa you love her every day. You don't just tell her that, you tell her one more time every single day. So you start stacking up mathematically all of these one mores. You've just done more, so you're better, but you've changed the standard of your life. And you've built this superhuman type self-confidence that I not only do what I say I'm going to do, I do one more than I'm saying I'm going to do. And that's something almost nobody's willing to do. So I'm going to get things almost nobody's going to get. So that's one thing initially everybody can do.
Yeah, so you are one of the sweetest guys on planet Earth, like in real life.
Thank you.
But also in real life, you're one of the most intense guys, which I really respond to. So my journey as an entrepreneur was toughening up. I was super weak as a kid, way whiny, like definitely did not push myself. And my parents loved them to death, but they didn't know how to push me either. And so when I went to college, my mom assumed I was going to fail because I was so profoundly lazy. And so hearing you in the book talk about like pushing to the extreme, like you actually use the word extreme multiple times.
I do.
And that to expand your capabilities, you have to go into the extreme. Talk to me about that, because right now I feel like that's an incredibly unpopular message.
It is.
And at the same time, it is true.
Thank you. And by the way, you talked about it on my show. So there's a part of the book where I talk about extremity expands capacity. Until you push something to the extreme, you don't really stretch your capacity to do it. And so for me, I already know, at this point in my life, we know what we're capable of at one point. So how do we change what we're capable of? And that's with extremity. That's with pushing it to the extreme. I have another chapter in the book where I call it Do One More Inconvenience. This is something that if we could train ourselves to do, our entire lives would change, which is that do the inconvenient or difficult thing in your day or in your life. Human nature is to avoid that. You call it being lazy, but it's just to avoid the inconvenient. Napoleon Hill says in Think and Grow Rich, which I love, he says, on the other type of temporary pain, you are introduced to your other self. And that other self produces another life. So what we have to change, I think, to some extent, is our relationship with pain. I'm willing to pursue pain. I'm willing to pursue discomfort and do the inconvenient thing, because on the other side of that, I have extended my capacity. I've literally changed who I am by getting on the other side of that. And so for me, I am always trying to find the inconvenient thing to do, because it's not my nature either. I have to build all these habits like you do, because left to my own devices, man, I'm Netflix and pizza and Cheetos. I really would be. Like, people say to me, man, you just seem so hardcore. People think this about you as well. No, actually I'm not. And so I've had to develop these mindsets, the strategies in the book, the ways I think, my habits. There's a whole chapter on how to build habits in the book, because I'm not that way. I'm not overly disciplined. But I've learned to sort of change my relationship with pain, even in the gym, but even in a given day. For me, I chase the thing that's inconvenient because I know on the other side of that is where all the stuff lies that I want. And so that's, this old notion of, get out of your comfort zone. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about pursuing the inconvenient in a given day, because that's the pathway to your bliss. That's the pathway to your happiness. And
why is that? That's super counterintuitive.
Well, it's the pathway to your bliss and your happiness, because when we're doing things that aren't convenient on a very regular basis, there's a part of our spirit, I believe, in our soul that knows we were born to do something great, that knows we were born to grow. And when we begin to settle in our lives, it's like, I had a conversation this morning with a friend of mine who's a parent. They're having some parenting issues, and they're like, well, yeah, you grew up with an alcoholic dad, so that was child neglect. And my parents got divorced, that was child neglect. But I'm not neglecting my kids. This is just this morning, really good friend of mine. I said, I think you should rethink that. And I said, there's an insidious form of neglecting your children. And she goes, well, what is it? And I said, it's not pursuing your potential and your dreams.
Oof.
That's a form of neglect of your children. You're installing the software in them that it's okay to settle. That it's
because they're watching you.
Because they're watching you. And almost everything in life is caught, not taught. You don't teach lessons to people, they catch lessons from you. And so you're neglecting that child when you're not pursuing your potential, your bliss, or your dreams in your life. That's a form of neglect. So if it's neglecting a child when we do it, it's a form of self-neglect when we do it to ourselves. And so that's why it's counterintuitive not to do inconvenient things. But the reason it's a pathway to bliss and happiness is intuitively we know we're neglecting our spirit. We know we're neglecting our soul. We know we're neglecting our potential when we're not chasing it. And there's no way that we can simultaneously be blissful and at the same time know that we're somehow treating ourselves less than we're worthy of.
I have a growing hypothesis. I'm super curious. So when I hear people like you talk about this stuff, I'm going to say 99 times out of 100, there's been a physical transformation that they've gone through. Obviously, your physique is insane. I know what it would take to achieve your physique. I don't have your physique not because I don't want it, because I don't want to put that level of energy into it. I'm honest with myself about that. But I have transformed my physique.
Sure have.
And so I know what that takes. And that, I didn't think a lot about it at the time, but that coincided with me getting better at being an entrepreneur because I realized, I saw what you were saying, that as I did one more, as I pushed myself, as I did the things that were inconvenient, as I reached for the extreme, as I began to model myself after something other people said was crazy, right? Oh, that guy's too big. Oh, what are you doing? That's crazy. But I really got obsessed with it.
Yes.
And in doing that and going to the gym and pushing myself and being uncomfortable, I remember one time getting trapped under a weight and I was like, fuck, how am I gonna get out of this? And by being in those situations over and over and over, you begin to realize, oh my God, like I actually change as a result of this, which 100%. Then lets you believe that you can change your mind in the same way.
Yes.
How important do you think it is for people to deal with the body, to push themselves to have a transformation there?
Well, brother, I love you because we think so similarly. Catalyst for change for me all my life has been in my body. And the reason for that is it's something that I actually have some measure of control over. I can't control the external result. I can't control every time how someone's going to respond to me, what the market's doing, whatever it might be. I can control, like you and I were talking off camera, what I'm putting in here, what I'm putting in this pie hole every day. I can control my amount of hydration. I can control the training in my life. And so for me, the catalyst for change, frankly, I was 221 pounds, big and not fat. And but I knew the book was coming out and I was writing the book. And the catalyst for me to get in the most peak state I could do is to do something extreme. And so the extreme thing I did is I said, I'm gonna weigh 180 pounds in 90 days.
Whoa!
And I got down to 177. And I did that through, intermittent fasting, caloric restriction, changing my cardio, but it was an extreme.
While you were working on the book?
While I was. And the reason I did it is I knew that if I could transform the internal parts of me, that the external results I was going to produce would be that much more extraordinary. And so I'm
getting the chills.
Yeah. Well, by the way, and you've done it as well. It's not like I'm going to do this every single, month of my life or even every single year of my life. But to your point, if you're sitting there and you're thinking, I can't change things. It's like, I don't have the capital. I don't have the relationships. I don't have the this or the that. You do have a body, and you can change that. There's things you can do to move it differently, treat it differently, potentially be more kind to it. One thing I'm doing, I'm 51 years old, man. I've never stretched in my life. I've never done yoga in my life. These joints and tendons are sick of me beating them up. And so one of the reasons I got a little lighter, a little smaller, a little bit less taxing on it, and I'm giving myself the gift of great stretching, great yoga. I'm doing massage now. I'm doing things to be kinder to my body as well. And this may sound really hokey and cheesy. I find myself, this is a strange thing to word it, but I find myself being a little bit more gentle with myself. When I'm so aggressive in the gym all the time, there's a transfer of that even in my life where I'm so aggressive and intense on myself, which I love that part of me. But I've had 51 years of that. And so now I'm like, you know what? I'm being a little more kind to my body, a little bit more gentle with it. And I find myself, when I give a speech, usually I'll beat myself up. I could have done, you do the same thing. I should have done this. I should have done that. Leave a meeting, leave a podcast. Why didn't you say this? And I've just beat myself up all my life, just like I do in the gym. Recently, I find as I treat my body differently, I'm treating me differently. I'm like, that's okay, bro. You got the next one. That wasn't so bad. I'm sure you still made a difference. I've never said those words to myself in my life. Because I've always thought, if I let go of this beating myself up, that's part of my recipe, part of my formula. The truth is, I've probably been successful in spite of the way I've treated myself, not because of it.
That's interesting. I don't know that I agree. And as you're describing that, I'm so intrigued how you're going to answer this question. Do you think that you can do that now because you have pushed yourself so far, so hard? Or do you wish that you had gone back and done things the way you're doing them now back then?
I wish I had done both. I wish I've had the extremity part of my life where I'm pushing myself to that point of past what I think I'm capable of. But then I also wish that I wasn't so hard on myself, man. Like, I've spent a lot of years of my life, I've never really said this before. I've spent a lot of years of my life, I think, at my own expense. It makes me emotional to say it. I don't even know where that's coming from. At my own expense in the service of other people. And I think I had this delusion that I had to be almost suffering in order to produce bliss for other people. And some of that software was probably installed in me when I was young, with my dad being an alcoholic when I was young. And so, no, brother, I know I could have pushed myself and been one intense beast and still been a little bit more kind to myself. There's a more beautiful and elegant way to get to the results that I wanted. I totally know what you're saying, that there's different seasons of your life, and it's easy to say when you got a couple $100 million in the bank and all that other stuff, like, you know what, I'm gonna stretch now. I'm gonna get a massage.
It's a little bit different than that. So one, I think your insight about what you learned to do to be the peacemaker in your family, to read your dad, to figure out where he was, and that you were still so generous to him as well as to the rest of your family, to take his hand, to... And you talk about this in the book, so I highly encourage people to read it. But you would take his hand and try to shift his mood, and that really trained you to be somebody that could read people and help change their state, which I think is incredible. But the way that I see it is that you've earned the right, and I'm going to back up in a second, but you've earned the right to get to that position because you know you can fall back on discipline, the habits, all that stuff. Because what I'm thinking is, okay, if I'm 24 and I'm encountering Ed Mylett for the first time, and I have this glimmer of like, ooh, maybe I can do something more with my life. That guy really does, and this is projecting because this is where I was, but that guy probably really does need to go hard first. And he needs first to learn to be tough, to be a badass. Like, for me to transform my physique, I had to imagine my wife being physically assaulted. It was the only way I could show up and put in the work.
You got leverage on yourself.
Exactly. And if somebody had been at that moment telling me, no, you need to be kinder, gentler, it's like, on balance, you're right. And if you're talking to me when I'm in my 50s, 100%. But in the beginning, I wouldn't have been able to be so nuanced. And so I guess what I'm saying is, with what you've done and accomplished, you understand the nuance. You understand how important it is. To do all of that and to sacrifice yourself doesn't make sense.
I think you're right. I think we agree. So I think you have to know yourself. What's your default place? My default position has been all my life to try to earn things. I conflated when I was young. The only time I got love from my dad is if I achieved something, if I did something, Dad, I got an A, Dad, I hit a home run, Dad, I won the spelling bee, So I conflated achievement and pushing myself with love. So I know me. I know that part of me is sort of my default place to go. My default place is to do this. I think you have to know yourself. I think if your default is to not do those things, then giving yourself a break and being kinder and gentler is the absolute worst thing that you could do to yourself. In my case, man, it's been a lifetime. I was never a child. I was never a little boy. That 5-year-old, I was literally not a child. My dad would, you know this from the book, 5 years old. I got 2 skills in life, man. One is I can communicate. The other one is I can be present and read people. The present and read people is really simple. I had 3 sisters and a mom. And when my dad would walk through that front door at 5 years old, this beautiful little boy that I would have to look up at this man and quickly figure out, was he drunk or sober? What was his body language like? How was he walking? Was his tie-tie? Was he slurring his words? And if it was drunk, Dad, sisters need to get upstairs, Mom, go take a shower. And then the man of the house, me at that time, would take over and, like you said, grab my dad's hand and change his state. Dad, I hit a home run today. Dad, I got a 96 on my spelling test. And so I never afforded myself, or was afforded, to be a boy in my life, to ever really have a bunch of peace or bliss in that life. And my dad got sober, and you know that, and he was my best friend. But that part of my life was taken from me. I never had it. So I don't have to worry about Ed Mylett's, drive or ambition or any of those other things. I got to worry about this dude hurting himself, metaphorically, but actually theoretically too, in any possible way. And so you just got to know yourself. If your default is you'll cool it, then you know what? The worst thing you could do is give yourself a break. You're wired like me, and you beat yourself to a pulp all the time, and you think you can do that, and there's some point in your life you'll fray. And there's just a part of your brain, man. There's the neural parts of our brain are telling us, man, can you give me a little dopamine? Can you give me a little hit of something blissful? Can I celebrate this a little bit? Can I be a little bit more kind to myself? Because if you don't do that, eventually you've trained your brain that you don't want to do those things.
Yeah, I think Learning to love yourself is critical. I always tell people in my back pocket, I have detachment at all times, like a Buddhist style detachment.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is how you feel about yourself when you're by yourself. Success, money, all those things ultimately are irrelevant. If you hate yourself and you're rich, you're still going to have a terrible life.
You got it.
So I think that's really important.
I love people that have that combo. Like, I love people with a lot of self-confidence, a lot of humility. Because people with a lot of humility that have no self-confidence, you're kind of dragging them through life as a friend. Someone with all their self-confidence, no humility, they're going to burn out. They're going to make a mistake. They're not curious. They don't grow. I think even the reason I'm in the personal development space, why do I believe so much that people can change? I watched my dad do it. And then in my case, I had to learn these things, man, to be like a baseline functioning person. So my default personality is insecure.
Even today?
Even today.
Come on.
Very much.
Really?
Very much.
How is that default? You wake up and you say, I'm a nobody, or what? What's the
I lack this, I'm fooling everybody.
Really?
If they really knew, you know, some imposter syndrome mixed with just like tremendous, I was bullied as a kid. My dad was an alcoholic. I wasn't a real big guy. The only thing I wasn't good in school, the only thing I was good at was sports. A lot like with you were a great athlete. So my default is tons of insecurity. So that's probably never going to go away, the humility part. So the part that I've worked on really hard is the self-confidence part. And so I've got all this stuff in the book on those tips and what have I done to build it, because I had to get there just to get to baseline. And then I'm like, this stuff works. What if I refined it and made it my own and started to build these other strategies and stuff? So the confidence part is the thing I'm always going to have to work on.
Even today, even with all the success and the, you know, the massive show and the big businesses and all the homes and everything that people see.
Yeah. I mean, the truth is,
what else do you need, though, to feel more confident?
I don't need other things. It's an internal game. I don't need other stuff. In other words, the stuff is really fleeting and temporary. So I don't need another, you know, I bought an island lately, you know that, right? Like when I bought this island, they didn't make me more confident. It just was something that I've always wanted to be able to do. But it's not stuff. What needs to happen for me is that I'm most confident when I'm living in my intention, which is to serve, which is to like help other people. When I'm not doing that, Wayne Dyer, when I met him really, really young, told me, "You're going to change the world, Ed Mylett." And I'm like, I'm sure he said this to a lot of people, but he complimented me. I met him on a beach. We watched the sun come up together in Maui. Yeah, I was running on the beach. That's where he lived. Yeah, I was running on the beach, and we ran into each other.
What was he like? I never met him.
Incredible. So we became a dear friend of mine. But I'm running, you know, you get up before the sun comes up. I'm running on this. I'd won this incentive trip. And there's this bald dude running towards me with this hairy back. I'll never forget this sweaty, hairy back. And it was so long ago because I had a Sony Walkman on.
Wow.
And he had one. And he ran by me. I go, that was Wayne Dyer. And I said, Dr. Dyer, you changed my life. And he had this deep voice like mine. And he pulls it out and he goes, well, I doubt that.
Wow.
And he goes, I bet you changed your life. But he goes, how did I help you? And then he walked towards me, and I get emotional. Like, God's been so good to me. We sat on this beach together and watched the sun come up for about an hour and a half. And about an hour into it, he goes, you're going to change the world. And I'm sure he said this to a lot of people. And he's like, you're very talented, you're brilliant, you're a good communicator, you know. And he goes, and that's not the reason why. And he was writing a book at that time called The Power of Intention.
That's a great book.
Great book.
Incredible book.
And he goes, you really intend to help people. And he goes, all these things with your father and your upbringing and all that, Ed, he goes, that's all made you. And he goes, you have such a heart to want to help people. And he goes, would you do me a favor if we never meet again? And we ended up meeting many times. I said, yeah. And he said, never link your confidence to your ability. Because I know you struggle with your confidence. If it's predicated on your abilities or your achievements, you're always going to be chasing it. He goes, but if you link your confidence to your intentions, man, do you have beautiful intentions. And that is something I knew about me. I know I have a good heart. And I've never forgotten that. So when I do a podcast or a speech, I just connect to my intent, you know, and it's been the one thing that's brought me confidence. Because if you said, hey, Ed, you gotta be confident because you're great, or you got a house, or you have a plane, I go, yeah, but. But if you go, you gotta be confident because you have beautiful intentions to help people, I go,
I might have to listen to you.
You might be right.
Yeah.
And that's where my confidence comes from.
So, as an athlete, I gained confidence from results, from actually getting the result of becoming better.
Yep.
Right? I was
That's
not
one way
good,
to get it.
Right, I was not good, and then I put in the effort,
Yep.
and all the mistakes or the failures or the feedback, what I like to call it, gave me the lessons and taught me how to get better to accomplish the result that I was looking for, achieve the goal, win the game, or just improve my abilities. So what I'm hearing you say is link confidence to intention. Some people say link it to the effort, right? Like the effort that you show up, that you just keep showing up, and others talk about the results. Should we be thinking about it?
There's two. I call it the Holy Trilogy in the book of self-confidence.
What is this?
But the confidence trilogy is faith, have confidence. So if you're a person of faith, no matter what you believe in, it's amazing to me how people that believe in energy, quantum energy, or they're a Christian like me, and I believe in both, by the way. But whatever their faith is, that they have it on Sunday, they have it at Bible study, or they have it when they get together with their friends or when they meditate, but somehow when they walk into a business meeting, they're alone. So why are you alone then, but you're not alone these other times? So I'm never alone. So that's number one. Number two is my intention. And third is my associations change my confidence. But here's the biggie. If you don't have self-confidence, here's what you have. You have a really bad reputation with yourself.
Yes.
You have built a habit of not keeping the promises you make to yourself. We've all heard this before, but there's a level. I have a chapter in the book called One More Standard. Here's how I built what I would call almost superhuman confidence in spite of my insecurity. Think about that. Superhuman confidence in spite of my insecurity. And it's exactly what you just said. It's an effort play. If you don't have self-confidence, you've never kept the promises you make to yourself. Check that box. If you have self-confidence, you've started to keep the promises you make to yourself. If you want to have superhuman self-confidence, you keep the promises you make to yourself and one more. So if I'm going to get up and I'm going to work out, I'm going to do 10 reps in the gym, I do one more. If I'm going to do 45 minutes on the treadmill, I do one more. If I'm going to make 10 contacts in a day, I do that and one more. If I'm going to tell my daughter I love her every day, I'm going to do that and one more. And so that higher standard, because in life, we don't get our goals, we get our standards long term. And so if your standard is one more, what starts to happen is you go, I'm willing to do things other people aren't willing to do, and I combine that I have great faith, great associations, and I intend to help people. This is a formula to build wonderful self-confidence and never lack humility when you have it.
So when did you learn this one more mindset? Was this from your dad early on, or was this?
It's from my dad. So we talked about this a little bit earlier, but my dad had these couple theories he would always say to me. And so one was when he got sober, he gave it one more try. He was going to stay sober one day at a time. And then my dad, there's no dreaming in my house. There's no my jet, I've been blessed, I had multiple airplanes, right, in my life. My jet was in almost walking distance of my dad's house. He's never been on any of them.
Wow.
And I would say to my dad, I would say, hey, let's go play golf in Maui. Let's go, there's these great golf courses in the ocean. And my dad would say, well, why would I go all the way to Maui to play golf with my favorite person, my son, when we can play here in Chino? It's not about there, I want to be with my son. So my family had none of that stuff. But my dad knew I was a dreamer. And my dad would always say, I was one decision away from changing my life the whole time. One choice. And he'd say, Eddie, you're not as far away from these dreams as you think you are. And I'd say, really, Dad? And he'd go, no, you're actually a lot closer than you think. But because you think it's so far away, you behave in accordance with that belief system, and it always keeps it that far away from you.
So how do we bring our dreams closer to us?
The first thing is, that's a great question. The first thing is you need to believe and know that your one decision, one relationship, one meeting, one book, one thought, one something away from a completely different life. And when you know that, then you begin to look for them. And so in the second chapter of the book, I have a thing in the book called the matrix. And your matrix is your reticular activating system in your brain. It's the filter for your entire life. Okay, and this filter reveals to you the world that's in front of you. Again, an example of it is, I like what Musk is doing. So I just bought a Tesla. I drove it here today.
I got a Tesla too.
You do?
Model X, or what do you got?
I got a Plaid.
Okay, wow.
I got a Plaid. It's a good one.
Nice.
And so I bought this Plaid, and all of a sudden, man, everywhere I go, there's Teslas.
You see them everywhere.
They're everywhere. I'm like, whoa,
I see them everywhere.
Another one. 3 lanes over, other side of the road. Freaking Tesla. This is crazy. They were always there. Yeah. Why didn't I see them before? Because they weren't part of my RAS. So the key thing I teach you in the book, how to slow down time and create the matrix of your life. When you make the Teslas of your life, those relationships, those meetings, those thoughts, those encounters. You can very easily do this, but there's a process of repeated visualization you do that's not complicated. It's chapter 2 of the book, and it will shift you. The other component too, I have a chapter in the book called Become an Impossibility Thinker and a Possibility Achiever. Here's how most people's frame works. They don't have an RAS program, they're not intentional, so they keep getting, if the things most important to you are your worries, fears, anxieties, problems, bills, you will continue to have people, places, and things revealed to you that confirm it. And if you operate out of your memory and your history, if this is your pattern, your framework, you will continue to find those things. You need to learn to operate out of your imagination and your dreams. This is a different framework for life. Imagination is different than dreaming. Imagination causes you to create dreams and thoughts that never happen. When you imagine something, you create a space. Once you have a thought, this is powerful. When you have a thought, you create a space that did not exist in the world before you had that thought. And that space now exists. And the way your brain works and your life works and the universe works is it tries to furnish that space, whether it's a negative or a positive thought. It starts to hear things it wouldn't hear. That's why, like, when you're in a crowded room and they say, Lewis, you can hear Lewis auditorily over all the noise. Why? It's in your RAS. It's why you see the Tesla, okay? So the key thing is being able to operate out of this imagination. Why is imagination so important? When you were a child, 3, 4, 5 years old, you were probably happier than you are right now. Why? 2 reasons. A, you were closer to God. You had just been with God more recently. And 2, you operated out of your imagination. You didn't operate out of a history and a memory because you didn't have one. And slowly over time, by the time you were 10, 11, 12 years old, loving people installed their limiting thoughts and beliefs, their software into you. Because most things in life are caught, not taught. You catch them.
Wow.
And so now you're starting to operate out of history and memory, and you repeat it, and your RES begins to see the things that reinforce that history and memory. And so you basically have the same life over and over again with a different cast of characters in a different environment, but the same emotions. You have the same emotional home. My dad used to say to me, every call, bro, till the day he died, and I'm 50 years old, blah, 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 whatever we're talking about. Last thing he would always say to me, be careful. Be careful. What the heck? And I go,
careful with what?
I don't know. I never knew. But what is that programming from the time you're 8 years old? Be careful. Hey, go to school.
Watch out.
Be careful. So with that, they operate out of this fear thing, right? All the time, I need to be careful. I need to be careful. But don't make this risk. Don't take that business decision. Don't start a podcast. Don't get on that stage and speak. Don't do this. Don't do that. You say that to an already unconfident, insecure person. He meant it lovingly. By the time I'm 50, worth hundreds of millions of dollars, be careful. He didn't even know he was saying it to me. But what was he doing? He was installing, God bless him, his limiting beliefs into me as a little boy. So a lot of these things that you believe, you were defenseless when you started to believe them. They were installed in you by loving people who were around you.
Right.
And even though your life may look differently, your emotional home, the 4, 5, 6 emotions you experience pretty regularly, might be really familiar from your parents, 1 or 2 of them, right? And so you need to look at your emotional home.
What's your most powerful emotion and the emotion that you wish you could let go of?
Love is the most powerful emotion in the world. We will all do everything for love. If there were more love in the world, the way we treat one another, the way we express our thoughts, you know, you'll do anything for love, right? So love is by far my most powerful emotion. It's like I love you. And like when I just saw you, we didn't just hug for like 1 second.
Yeah.
And you do this better than I do.
I hold people, I make it uncomfortable because I just want to hug and love on people.
But it's not uncomfortable, bro.
Right.
Because the reason you're so successful is you truly do love people.
Yeah.
And you come from that place. And I know we're bigger dudes and like that's a beautiful expression of a man. A real man is capable of real love. Yeah. That's a sign of real strength. So that's the most powerful one. And then for me, I know the emotion that I wish I didn't have. It's chaos.
Really? How often do you experience chaos?
Less
emotion?
Because I'm aware of it. But I'm going to tell you all the time till about 5 years ago, even when we first met. Why? I used to even say this, man, I operate great under chaos. Man, you should see me operate under chaos. Most people can't handle chaos.
Right.
I'm calm under pressure. Well, the reason for that was I grew up in an alcoholic home. So I'm very familiar with chaos. It became a very familiar emotion. And what we do is we gravitate towards the familiar emotions in our life, even if they're not ones that serve us. And I don't think there's negative or positive emotions. I say this in the book. There just are.
Yes.
Fear isn't negative. Fear in abundance is negative. But some fear, being afraid to do this podcast, to some extent, causes us to prepare. So a dose of it was given to us in the caveman days so T-Rex didn't eat us, right?
Sure.
Some fear is good. Some anxiety is okay. Some frustration, some anger is appropriate. It's to the dosage level. And we get these 4 or 5 of them. For me, some chaos is okay. It's fun. It's exciting. It's exhilarating, right? But getting it every day, every week, every month, all the time. And so how do you get rid of it? Well, one way you get rid of it is just being awareness. When you have an awareness of a thought, it loses its impact and power over you. It almost becomes like this, I'm doing it again, aren't I? I'm doing the chaos thing again. Everything's great right now.
Yeah.
All the houses are paid off. My kids are happy, married to a great woman, got great friends. I'm doing the chaos thing again, aren't I? You dummy, you're doing it again. And it kind of loses its power over you. So I have a chapter in the book called One More Emotion and how to take an inventory of the emotions you have. And so, yeah, man, mine's definitely love, and the one I don't want is chaos. Because chaos causes me to act out of anger and frustration. It can depress me.
And your intentions are not going to be as,
It's pure. It's a gateway emotion. Chaos is my gateway emotion to the ones I don't want. Chaos gives me stress. Chaos gives me anger. Chaos gives me frustration. Chaos gives me fear. So it's a gateway emotion.
What is the result when you create from that space of chaos?
It's funny. I have found the ability to externally create something pretty productive.
Right.
But stay with me on this. But the process in getting there is destructive. The process in getting there is not beautiful. And I used to think that a lot of successful people,
forcing your way to get the results.
almost through force.
Yeah.
You know? And I still do it sometimes. I'm thinking of a situation this week where I did it. And I used to think, well, that's a superpower though, because I've created all these external.
Look what I made.
Look what I did.
Yeah.
And I'm doing it because of that. The truth is I did it in spite of it.
You did.
And there's a lot of things in our lives that we have linked to our formula, our recipe of success that we hold on to, that you've done in spite of those things, not because of those things.
So you're 51 now, 52, 51? When you were 40, on a scale of 1 to 10, of the self-confident happiness joy scale, 10 being like you loved yourself fully, you were peaceful, you had an abundant mindset, had inner peace, joy. 1 being you hated yourself, you were miserable, you were in chaos 24/7. Where were you on that scale at 40?
Okay, the real answer is probably a 3 of happiness. But if you met me, I could convince you that it was probably an 8.
That you were super happy and you had it together.
Probably a 3.
And since your father passing, where are you now?
Probably a 9.
Really?
Yeah, and I no longer feel the need to convince you. Because I've learned that this has already existed within me. I didn't have to go get it. I just had to allow myself to experience it. And it took me a long time to treat myself in such a way that I allowed myself to feel these things that have always been there. I had them when I was a little baby boy. I just lost them along the way in these patterns and programs that were installed in me and my experiences. And I got to share something with you, brother, that just dawned on me. I wrote this whole book, and 2 weeks ago I had this. This is just for me and you, but everybody can hear it.
Sure.
And I've always tried to disqualify myself. I've always, you're not this.
Why is that?
It always shocks people, even people that know me really well. They're like, not you. I have that, but there's no way you have it, right?
Yeah, you're too confident, too talented, too...
No, and I don't know that I'm too talented, but I think I can fake it pretty well. And I disqualify myself because, the truth is that maybe for a while, everything that I got that was love when I was a child only came when I achieved something. So I started to conflate early on in my life recognition and significance with love. In other words, my dad would love me if I hit the home run. My dad would love me if I get straight A's. And so then when I would feel these things. But something really amazing, and also I'm really big at holding myself. I love to beat myself up with mistakes I've made. I did this, I did that. I should have done this, I didn't do that. And I've always thought these mistakes, these weaknesses of mine, disqualify me from being happy or helping people. And this amazing breakthrough. The one decision that changed my family forever is my dad's decision to get sober. And it changed my family forever. I'm talking to you because my dad made that decision. Wow. And I've always been so proud of my dad for that. But this is just 2 weeks ago, 3:15 in the morning. I wake up, I'm crying. And I wake Christiana up. I go, babe, someone helped Dad. And she went, what, honey? I said, someone helped Dad. She goes, what do you mean? I said, babe, I never thought about this. In my dad's darkest, worst moment of his life, in some coffee shop or some room somewhere, some precious soul helped my dad.
Reached out to him, talked to him.
Talked to him and got him sober.
Wow.
And I said, babe, that's not the powerful part. And I have no idea who this person is, but I wonder if they know the difference they made in Max and Bella's, my children's lives, or your life, or the millions of people I've helped. That one decision they made. And she goes, oh my gosh. I said, I never thought about this beautiful human being. Always gave the credit to my dad, but some stranger helped him. And I said, babe, this is the bananas part. Do you know what qualified them to help my dad? Their messed up life.
Wow.
They were an alcoholic. They were a drug addict. Little did that person know the things they were the most ashamed of, the biggest mistakes of their lives, when they were using drugs and drinking and stealing, that was qualifying them to change my dad's life. And all of us, we run around carrying these bags of, I'm not qualified because I made this mistake. I had this bankruptcy. This relationship didn't work. I did this thing you don't know about. I'm so ashamed of.
And that's why you're qualified.
That's the thing that qualifies you.
Yeah.
The humanness in you. You are the only human being with your combination of gifts that you were given, whatever they are, and your experience. And real human beings help real human beings by being vulnerable and transparent, saying, I know where you are. I've messed up worse.
Right.
I've made greater mistakes. I felt more, I know that depression. I know that anxiety. I know that shame. I know what that feels like. That beautiful soul who was a drug addict and alcoholic, they didn't know all those mistakes they're making were leading them out of their heart. And they finally got to a point where their intention was to help my father in the lowest moment of his life. They changed my dad's life, and they're changed mine, and maybe me and you are changing a few today because of that person's mess.
It's crazy.
Is that crazy?
That's amazing.
I know. I love them and thank them.
That's amazing, man.
By the time we're done with this book, we have no excuse to not be at 99 degrees.
And here's why. You'll be associating with me the whole time you read the book. Don't read this book like, I'm reading the words this guy wrote. Pretend I'm talking to you.
And that's one of my favorite parts about, I don't know if it's the first chapter or the foreword, but you say, I'm going to read it word for word. You were not born to be average or ordinary. You were born to do something great with your life. I know this about you.
Yeah.
Those are Ed's exact words.
Yep.
Ed, how the hell do you know that about me? How the hell do you know that about the people reading this book?
Because I have faith, and my faith informs me that we're all brothers and sisters of the same loving God. And so whatever DNA I have running through me, you can have running through you. And if one man can do something, another man can do it. And you're born with your own unique skills and giftedness, just like you described earlier, that are yours. Combined with your life experience makes you one of a kind. Here's one thing I want you to think about, bro. This is going to blow your mind. It just occurred to me after I wrote the book. My dad got sober, and that one decision changed my family forever. If my dad doesn't get sober, I'm probably not talking to you. And then it occurred to me after I wrote the book, I want everyone to hear this. This is super important. I woke up the other night, and I woke my wife up. I woke Christine. I go, babe, someone helped my dad. She goes, what, honey? I said, someone helped my dad. I never thought about it before. Someone helped my dad get sober. She goes, oh my God. I said, I don't have no idea who they were. It's like an anonymous program. And I said, babe, do you know what qualified them to help my dad? She goes, no. I go, they were a drunk.
Yeah.
They were a mess. They were an alcoholic. Their mess qualified them to help my dad. This average, everyday human being whose life was a shambles at one point helped my dad change his entire life, which helped me, which changed his grandkids' life.
You know what we call that? Compounding interest.
That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is.
Because you are now the fruits of those single small actions, those single one more steps that people took.
Yes.
One drunk helped another drunk. That drunk cleaned up his life.
Yep.
He inspired you, and now you inspire millions.
And that's exactly right. And what I want everyone to know that, bro, is like your mess doesn't disqualify you from helping other people or making your dreams come true. In fact, it's what qualifies you to make something great with your life. This thing you think that you fear about you or you're embarrassed by or not confident about or ashamed of, that may be the very thing that helps you change other people's lives. It may be one of your great gifts. And it sure was for my family. So I just had to tell you that because it's not in the book and it just occurred to me like a week ago.
That's wild.
Yeah, it's wild. Yeah.
That's a wild middle of the night thought.
It is, man.
Because that's a heavy one.
It's a heavy one.
That's a big one.
It's a real one. I know we're going heavy today. Whatever. It's cool.
That's what we're here for, man.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, I gotta tell you, Ed, it's an honor to be able to turn the tables on you because you are one of the world's best interviewers.
You're good too.
You could be on any broadcast network in the world and you could kick Larry King's ass. You could just absolutely dominate because you have a way of reading people's body language. You don't step on people's words. You're able to feel what I'm saying. The empathy that I feel your empathy right now. It's like your heart is like shining at me. And even when I'm texting you. And so you have that ability and it's just incredible that you've been able to turn it into words that are easy to digest.
Thank you.
That anybody, I'm serious, this book is heavy, but I feel like my 10-year-old daughter could probably start to chew through this.
I hope so. I think so.
And I'm going to teach her these things because my 10-year-old daughter is a miniature version of me.
Oh, yeah.
And she, if you think I'm doing great things, Just wait till you see what Charlie does. And you feel the same way about Max and Bella, right? Is your daughter.
Yeah.
So there's another thing, and I think you actually, is there a chapter on the 24-hour day?
Yeah.
Was that in Max Out as well?
A little touched on it there, really detailed.
It's one of my favorite things that you've ever talked about, because I want to dive into that a little bit, because it changed the way that I view life.
Me too.
Because how do we view life right now? 24/7, right?
Yep.
We got 24 hours in a day, 7 days in a week, and usually the work days, if you're working an average job, 8-9 hours a day.
Yeah.
Guys that are, entrepreneurs are usually working 14-15 hours a day. You have learned how to turn one day into 3 days.
That's right. Yep.
How did you do that?
By the way, I'm just so proud of you. I'm just watching you, man. You're just so good. You're going to change the world, dude.
Thank you, Ed.
I told my wife that this morning. So having said that, I'll help you a little bit here. So the idea that there's 24 hours in a day is stupid. And it's antiquated and dated. So a 24-hour day was created when there was no electricity, when there was no internet, when there was no nothing. Yet most people still measure time the same way people did 250 years ago. How insane is that?
That's wild.
Right? And so most human beings are walking around oblivious to the fact that we can compress time frames now. Information is faster. There's actually cars and electricity and lights, and you don't have to send stuff by horse, and there's this thing called email now. And
you know what's so funny? I'm sorry to cut you off. We were sitting downtown. We love tacos.
Me too.
I'm a connoisseur of tacos, and so anytime we land in SoCal, I Google whoever's got the best reviews. So we're sitting there eating tacos today, and I look up and I look over at my buddy Jason, and I say, how archaic are power lines? Power lines, you go downtown, anywhere in California, and there's just lines and wood poles everywhere. And we're stuck in these old ways that we're just stuck with, and nobody really knows why. I mean, maybe it's expensive to bury them and change them, but as you move into these newer communities, I guarantee you some of the houses that you have don't have power lines running to them.
You bet they don't. And by the way, it's super interesting you say that, because we become so used to seeing them that they become invisible. And so if you were to ask somebody in Laguna Beach who's got this incredible ocean to look at, you do realize there's power lines blocking your view. They would actually say, I don't see them anymore. We become so oblivious to the dumb things that we do in life that we just unconsciously, like zombies, walk through them. And one of them is the way we manage time. So my first day is from 6 a.m. to noon. That's a day. You ever have a morning where you're like, I got more done this morning than I get all day or all week? That's because you compress time frames. So my first day is 6 a.m. to noon. That's a day. And in that day, I could have all fun. I could have faith. I could have family. I could have business. But it's a day. I measure the day in that window. What's important about that is around noon, this light bulb, this clock goes off in my head that goes, what did I just get done? What did I do? What do I need to be accountable for? What do I need to redouble my efforts on? What do I need to do more the second day? Second day is noon to 6 p.m. Some of those days, like Sundays, it's just straight faith and family for me. But in that day, I could do contacts, meetings, working out, you name it. But that's a day. And then the next day's from 6 p.m. to midnight. These days, now I got 3 days in a day. I got 21 in a week. I got 44 in a month or more. You tell me that you're going to compete against me when I get 44 days, by the way, let me do the math again for you. 21 days in a week, right? That's 84, by the way. 21 days in a week I get, and you get 7, and we stack that up over a year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, I'm going to smash you in fun, in happiness, in fitness, in success, in family, because I get more days than you. And there's one other thing that happens. Because you treat time more preciously, you've bended time and manipulated it, other people take you more seriously.
Yeah.
Other people look at you as moving faster, talking faster, more valuable. What there is less of is more valuable. What's precious is more valuable. That's why diamonds are worth more than paper. So most people treat their days like paper instead of diamonds. But if you start having 6-hour days, all of a sudden time becomes precious. It becomes valuable to you and everybody around you. Your entire life will change. Sorry, my math was bad. Your entire life will change when you get 21 days a week. I promise you, it'll be a completely different existence. And by the way, after like about 6 real months of doing this, you're going to tell me, man, you know what, about noon every day, this thing goes off in my head that goes, what did I get done? What do I need to do now? How much fun did I have? Did I make sure I said my prayers? Did I make enough money? And it starts calibrating time completely differently, and you'll never go back to 24 hours.
Ed, I don't know if you realize what you've done, but you've taken something that has been linear for hundreds of years, which is the 24-hour clock, and you made it 3-dimensional.
Yeah. I know.
You really did. Now you have these blocks and these bubbles, and you have these areas where you can get in, dive in, do more. And you know the movie Groundhog's Day?
Yeah.
That movie stresses me out so bad, because it's a reflection of what happens to
humans,
middle-aged men as they go to start to work, or anybody. You get stuck in Groundhog's Day and you start doing the same thing over and over. And Groundhog's Day is an exaggeration of it, but I think a lot of people do live Groundhog's Day because they're doing the same thing over and over and over again, and they don't find a way to. I love the way that you don't make it, okay, 6 a.m. to 12 a.m. I have to do this. It's no, 6 a.m. to 12 a.m. is a day for me, and whatever I do in that day,
like any other day,
it's you're gonna flip flop things, move them around. If you want to go golf from 6 a.m. to 12 p.m., that's gonna be what you did in that day,
and I do it.
And that's the most.
Here's what's nuts. I had to move out of this storage unit. This is gonna date me like how old I am, but it's like an old storage unit because I bought that island. I'm like, all right, I'll take all my old stuff and dump it on this island. I had a bunch of Encyclopedia Britannicas in there. And these old encyclopedias, most of your audience won't even know what they are. Google what that is and realize that when I used to try to research something for school, I would have to go to an encyclopedia or drive down to a freaking library, find the book, open the book, write it all down by hand. Now my kids go, how to build a fort, how to do whatever, how does science work? They Google it and have it like that. And I'm gonna measure time the same way now that I did back then.
This is so funny you're saying
this. It's ridiculous.
Literally yesterday, we did a video where we bought a bunch of storage units sight unseen, and we got in them, opened them up, and there were, when you buy storage units, you find all kinds of wild stuff. And we found a whole volume of, you ever heard of what's called the Book of Knowledge?
Yes.
And it's like volume A, B, C, and you go in there, and I opened one, and it's like, here's how tractors work. And then you go through, later in the book, and it's like, here's how the tides in the ocean work. You used to have to go through page by page by page to find this information.
Crazy.
And so if that's changed so quickly, if I can go to my phone now and figure out how tractors work in 30 seconds, why can't I do that with time and productivity and my family and my relationships?
You can and everything.
And the best part about this is the people who are going to benefit the most are the people who are closest to you. Mm-hmm. If you're a family man or you're a single mom, doesn't matter who you are. I believe, after going through your book, that if people start to do those one more things, those just that little inconvenience, that extra rep, whatever it is, and here's the thing, Ed, I'm not a big believer. This is why, Andy Frisella, good friend of ours. His program 75 Hard scares the living shit out of me.
Okay.
Because it's a lot at once. And some people need that shock to the system. I'm the type of person where I decided that if I want to feel better, I'm going to start drinking a little bit more water every day. And so I started easing into it, and everybody has different personality types. And so what I don't want people to think is, if you read this book, don't think I have to implement all 19 chapters at once. No. Take the principles that you're learning and say, that's one that really resonates with me. I'm going to implement that one now.
Let's talk about mentors for a minute. You mentioned that. How have mentors impacted you on your journey? John being one of those for you, I assume. And where do you think that impacts people? If you're out there listening, the people that are listening to this show, what have mentors done for your life, and what could they do for the people listening and watching?
Well, John is one of them, and the idea that I have to live up to him being there last year, it makes me incredibly uncomfortable. In fact, I talked to John Friday because another good friend of mine, John Gordon, was with them, and they had met for the first time and ended up, saying, hey, they're both very good friends of mine, and both, connected over that. My mentors, the number one thing, John's one of them. And by the way, the coolest thing is when your mentor moves from mentor to friend, because when they become your friend, then they have way more influence over you, right? Like if you think about with your kids, like their teacher's their mentor, and that teacher has tremendous influence over your child. But who do you really worry about as influencing your child? Their friends, right? And so when you get to that point where you become friends with your mentor, oh my gosh, can they make an impact on you that's just remarkable? And I consider John a friend. He was moved from mentor to friend. My mentors, the number one thing they've done for me in my life is they've believed in me in such a deep way that I've wanted to live up to how they looked at me. I wanted to prove them right. And so the number one thing my mentors have seen my giftedness, seen my potential, seen my capacity. They see me as I could be, not as I am. And because they see me as I could be, as not as I am, and they've done it enough that I actually want to work hard enough to live up to prove them right. That's number one. Number two, my mentors have been further down the road that I want to go down. And that's why I selected them as a mentor. And they have directions. They have directions. And the vast majority of those directions, believe it or not, have come from wrong turns they made that they warned me about that I then don't make. So, of course, there's been mentors will say, listen, I did this, this, and this, and that works. And those have been very effective lessons. But other ones have been, hey, warning, here's a turn I made that I don't think you need to make. Or I see you going down a path I was going down. I can just tell you, that's a dead end road. Turn around now and head this way. And so they've done that for me. They also give me comfort and security. They've helped create what I would call like an emotional stability around me, that I'm not alone in this journey. My number one mentor and friend is Jesus. You know that. And he gives me tremendous comfort to know. I just did it last night. I was praying last night. I pray on my knees every night. And we're being, I'm just bearing my soul with you today more than I normally would. And like literally at the end of my prayer last night, kind of got some stuff going on. I'm like, hey, Lord, I'm giving this to you. I got this overwhelming like warmth flowed over me. Like, hey, I have you, my son. I love you. I got you. And so that's the ultimate example of that. But it also feels good to be able to call John or Lou and say, hey, I got this. And they're like, I got your back. It's going to be okay. There's some comfort to it. Gives me some emotional peace. They've done all of those things, but they have a sense of direction. There's the Chinese proverb that I always screw up, but if you want to know the road ahead, ask those coming back. They have directions. They've seen it. And most of these people, including me at this point, I've been down a lot of different roads. I can save you time by the mistakes I've made, and I can give you some sense of direction on what's worked for me and what hasn't worked. The best mentors also usually ask me questions and don't make statements, meaning they make me work hard within myself to find the answer by asking the right questions, as opposed to just giving me instructions, because that's the difference between, feeding somebody and teaching them to fish. My great mentors have made me do the hard work on uncovering the answers and creating the systems and patterns and habits in my life that'll allow me to solve these types of problems when they come up in the future, when maybe they won't be present.
What role does faith play in your selection of mentors?
Yeah, it's now probably the primary thing. I can't say that every mentor I've had has shared faith, because that's not true. I've had fitness mentors who don't share my faith, and I'm like, show me how to get that body, right? Or my current doctor who's on my show tomorrow. I don't think we share the same faith, but God still made her in her image and likeness to serve me. So it's not a requirement for me. I mean, I the easy answer would be to say that, all of them share my faith. That's not true. I have mentors in certain areas of my life that don't share my faith. And I got to be honest with you, I enjoy having friends around me with different perspectives and points of view. It strengthens my faith. It causes me to question things that I think require questioning to go to the next level. It's actually a really good question. My best friend is not a believer. I'm working on him, but my best friend, his real name's Kelly, but I call him Richard Cabeza on my social media. You can figure out why I call him that.
Love that guy.
And I love him, and he lives a better life than most of my believer friends. But he's more than a brother to me. Like I love and adore him. And I think over time, things have happened in his life. I think I'm allowed to say this because I love him, but in the last year, he lost his sister and his brother. And his mom's ailing. And I don't want to be too personal with his life because I love him, but because I'm so close to him, more than a brother, it's now the time that we've started to have these conversations about, well, where'd they go, bro? And what's this life all mean? And now that you're getting near 50, is it all about your Louis Vuitton shoes and your mansion on the ocean and, these other things? And he keeps reaching these conclusions like, brother, it's not. There's got to be more. And so now we're at that stage where I think we're having those conversations. But so it's not all of them do share my faith. I think the primary ones, though, I want them to, because they understand my point of view and perspective of how I think and what matters to me. And in most cases, if they don't share that same belief system, it's hard to give me the major directions on the major things in my life. But I think you'd be surprised, even with John, who used to run a church. I think you'd be surprised, if I'm being honest, about how unspoken our faith is between the two of us. I mean, it's not that it's never spoken, but it's not like, let's pray together every minute that we're together, nor is faith necessarily the central topic when he and I talk. But I think we both know that's the play running in the background. But I think people would be surprised that you would think of you and John Maxwell must talk about faith all the time. We don't. Now, John Gordon and I do. It's just a different friendship. John Gordon and I, about everything always comes back to faith. It's just the nature of our relationship. It's just a different dynamic. So did that answer? I think that answers it.
Yeah, I find it, best to live out the way that you want to live. As they say, the old quote is, live right, because you might be the only Bible that anybody ever reads.
I think that's probably the number one thing that's going on with me and Kelly, because he's just watched me live my life up close for 20 years. And I think the older and older he gets, he's understanding the narrative going on behind me and why, more than when we were younger men. And I think any of you that are people of faith, I think it might surprise you when God will finally use your life at the right time for that person. And it may not be on your time. I'm finding as I get older, it's like some of my friends, that just never came up. It just never was there, and was just great respect and understanding between each other. And now it's starting to, as we all get older. So maybe it'll not be on your time, but it might happen on his time.
Well, man, I know you're going to love walking into that room in Naples. And I'll say this, which I don't think I've ever shared this publicly, but since we're on a roll today, I'll share it here. Top Contractor School for me it's my ministry, man. It's the way that, I'm able to impact people, not just in business, but personally. So often in construction, man, you see, these people in the trades who, they're amazing tradespeople, right? They're amazing tradesmen, tradeswomen. But what they've done is they've built a job with a tax ID number. They haven't built a company. And our mission as an organization is to be able to take those people and fill in the gaps and give them freedom, build them a life. And, I just said it to somebody today. I said, people a lot of times get into entrepreneurship because they think there's freedom on the other side. And if you don't have the right advice, you don't have the right mentorship, you don't have the right foundation, what you build yourself is just a bigger cage.
Yeah, you build yourself 18 different jobs. You don't build yourself any freedom. You end up becoming, a slave to this thing you've built. And by the way, I've done that. Early in my career, I built businesses that created more bondage, more stress in my life than was reasonable. And it's because I didn't have a mentor. The other thing you create, that's not just you don't just have you've created an environment that supports these contractors. So it's beyond you. It's an environment. And winning in life oftentimes is a matter of feeling that you're in business for yourself, but not by yourself. And so many people feel like they're in business by themselves. And what you've done is said, no, you're not by yourself. You're in business for yourself, but you are not by yourself. And you've got access to information and resources and you and peers that accelerate and save time and reduce stress and give you access to resources that you otherwise would never have had in your life. And so you're not by yourself. That's a huge thing for small business operators, medium-sized business operators, and something that the reason I look old, I think one of the reasons I look older, and Sasha, we need to change the lighting in here today, by the way. The reason that I look older is because I did spend the first 10 years of my business career by myself. And I wouldn't wish that on anybody. It was totally unnecessary. I just didn't understand what a mentor could do, or coaches could do, or mastermind, in the sense that the collective mind being bigger than mine on my own. I didn't have any appreciation for any of that until I read Think and Grow Rich. And then frankly, I'm old enough that this stuff didn't exist on the level that it does now when I was a young entrepreneur. It didn't exist. There just weren't groups like what you've built in this space. The other thing that's cool about what you've done is, I want to say this to you, is it's not so broad that there's people that one guy's got a dance company and some lady's got a taco truck. And so you're in this space. And so it defines the space you're in, which I think narrows focus and allows the information to be with a higher level of specificity because everyone's operating in the same industries collectively. And that's brilliant of you because like even in our coaching program, it's all these different industries. And when it's that broad, the content itself has to remain general and broad. But when you target an industry like you've done, it allows much more specificity and precision.